Hey y'all, welcome to the introductory episode of the Late Night Vision Show. I am one of your hosts, Jason Robertson, and I've got my co-host here. Many of you may already know who he is from YouTube, HansETX. Hey Hans, glad to have you. How are you tonight?
Hey Jason, man, this is awesome. I tell you, broadcasting to the world from the tiny town of Ben Wheeler, Texas, and also from Appleby. And I tell you, most of the people who listen have never heard of those two places, and I know they hadn't been there for a fact.
No, that's exactly right. Yeah, and they're probably not missing a whole lot, so that's okay. All right. Well, look, I tell you what, we're really excited about this podcast. I think that we've got a lot of great things in store, but let's just go ahead and start off. Hans, why don't you just tell everybody a little bit about how you got into night vision, night hunting, hog hunting? Just tell us a little bit about that.
Right. You know, that's I didn't start really hog hunting just for fun. It was we had a lot of problems with the properties that we have around here, my family's land. Every year it kept getting worse and worse.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we're running tractors out on the properties, and you know, you get stuck in a big old sinkhole. And not just with the hog hunting, but any type of night hunting, predator hunting. You know, we've got a lot of cattle around here, and we got a bad problem with coyotes, and not just with hogs tearing up land, but with coyotes, you know, coming in and killing cattle and different other types of animals. So really, my father-in-law came to me several years ago and said, "Hey, we got to do something about this problem. You know, our land's getting tore up. You know, people around us, their cattle's are disappearing or getting killed because of coyotes." And he said, "I need you to do it." He said, "I don't want to do it, but you're a young man. You need to go out and you need to take care of it." And, you know, so what I did, I went out and got me the digital night vision infrared scope, started off on that. And from there, my brother-in-law got a thermal, and I looked through that for the first time, and I was hooked.
Absolutely.
And I got into thermal hunting. And I tell you, ever since then, every night, at least for a couple hours a night, I'll go out and check around in our fields. And I do that every night that I'm in town, that I'm not off somewhere else. But really got doing that, and you know, the technology got better, and now we have the ability to record our hunts,
and the technology got less expensive too.
Less expensive, and getting better. Well, you know, then we were starting to record our hunts, and I was really just sharing that with my buddies around here in East Texas, and they thought, "Man, that is cool. You need to share that on YouTube." And that concept really never came. It didn't even cross my mind. I started kind of looking around and seeing that there was a few people that were doing it, not a ton, but a few. So I started posting some videos and really big on the forums and videos on YouTube, and kind of got some good feedback from a lot of people. And it's good to hear us, you know, from some other hog hunters and coyote hunters around the country, really all over the world, you know, that you connect with.
Absolutely.
And, you know, really just being able to share what we do here, why it's not just showing the hunts, but why we do what we have to do. And that's
I think that's something that a lot of people don't understand, Hans, is that, you know, and it's in the South and in Texas, it's the hogs, and we've got to do it as well as coyotes, but especially up through the Midwest. You know, the predation of, you know, calves and other cattle, it is a really big deal. And I think that a lot of people just don't get that. And I think that us putting out a lot of these videos and like, you know, you're doing all the time and showing these big hogs and them out there rooting, I think it really is letting the rest of the country and even the world know that this is not just fun. There's a problem going on.
No, you're exactly right. And I tell you, you know, a lot of people ask, you know, why do you do this or why are you doing this? And the first thing I'll tell them is I didn't start doing this because of fun or because of sport. I did it because I had to do it, and because we had to do it here. And, you know, just recently we had an episode where we had hogs, about 20 hogs rooting up the front of our yard. My wife sends me a video of hogs, you know, a 200-pound hog 10 feet from our front porch. And, you know, that is an inconvenience when you're talking about having to, you know, fix a yard. But, you know, I have two young daughters. I've got a 10-year-old and I've got a 6-year-old, and they run around our house out in the yard all day long. And it's a scary thing when your daughter runs in and say, "Daddy, there's a big hog right by my swing set." That really raises the hair up on the back of your neck. So, Jason, that's really how I got into doing it. And I know a lot of what you do, and you and I talk a lot about it, of why we hog hunt, but it's really, we do it here because we have to do it. So started putting out the videos, like I said, got some really great response. And then you and I got partnered up on this deal and doing a lot of good things with reviews. So
absolutely. And, I think my story is going to be very similar to yours. I live on our own property, live on family land here, and we've had hogs for, 20 years out here, but it's just gotten worse and worse over the years. And, we didn't have night vision. In the old days, we were using, white spotlights, Q-beam lights, and plugging them into cigarette lighters. Didn't even
exactly.
We literally did not even have rechargeable. I mean, we were having to plug them into cigarette lighters.
Well, that's East Texas out where they're duct taping the flashlight on the rifle.
That's it.
Hey, man, we've all been there. We've all been
absolutely. there. And it wasn't that long ago. It doesn't feel like. So, exactly. Times have changed. But so, it is. I think that it's a similar situation. I got into it by necessity. And, for those of you who don't know, I'm the owner of Outdoor Legacy Gear. I've got an online store. And we basically specialize in night vision and thermal imaging and accessories, and that's all we do. And I've been in this business for several years, 5 or 6 years. And, night vision and thermal is it. And it's a fun business to be in because, we're getting to actually use all these products, and I'm getting to work with people like you, getting to do reviews. But so there is that other side of hog hunting and coyote hunting that there is fun to it, but at the same time, I know exactly what you're talking about. When I get out here in my pastures and I'm having to bush hog and nearly turning my tractor over, just it is hard on equipment. And it's just a real issue. And I tell you what, I mean, you can't even walk across, where some of these hogs are.
That reminded me of a story. You and I are talking on the phone, and you're walking out to shoot a hog. Well, you got all your gear.
I was hoping you weren't going to tell this story, but
okay. I want to tell the story. We got to tell it now, man. I know
you are. I know.
You're carrying your rifle. You got your gear. You got your. I'm gonna give you a hard time. Your merce, your man purse strapped around your shoulder.
That is a hog hunting side sling bag. It's exactly. OD green.
You're walking. You're walking through and you're like, oh crap, and you managed to hold on to the phone, but you step in a big hole and end up dropping everything.
I did. I went face first with an AR-15 slung across me, a very expensive thermal scope, a phone in one hand. My knees and elbows were wet and muddy, but I still had the phone to my ear.
You did. I was impressive. You didn't drop the phone. You didn't miss a lick talking to me.
No.
But I can tell you dropped everything that you had in your hands.
Absolutely. And there you go. It's just another example of, the destruction of these fields. So, but, in the same way, when I got into this, I started using digital night vision as well and was just absolutely amazed at what you could do for $500. I mean, like, oh my goodness, I can see at night. I can, at that time, that scope would only see about 100 yards, but good gravy, I could see at night and shoot hogs and amazing. And so anyway, obviously, like everybody else, I mean, we've, just upgraded over the years and, technology has changed and gotten less expensive. And like I said, now I'm in the business and have been, but it's a lot of fun, but it is nice to be able to thin this population of hogs the best that we can. And, here's the other thing. I mean, Hans nor I, we're not against trapping and all these other things. I think that night vision, thermal imaging is just another tool in the toolbox. It takes everything. Trapping, we've got guys that come through our place and run them with dogs a couple times a year. We're seriously whatever it takes to get rid of them.
Right. Any way we can do it. Like I said, and like you said, we've got dog runners out here. We've got trappers, and really thermal, I think, has made it where we can be most aggressive with it, and
Agree.
most productive with getting a large number of hogs eradicated out of the area. And it's already done a pretty good dent. But I'm telling you, here on our property, I've got a bait hole that's 70 yards from my front door, and I've killed, probably 150 hogs at one bait hole in just the last several months. So, and we were talking about thermal and the progression of night vision, and there's a lot of digital night vision hunters out there, and we're going to talk a lot about that. I've used it. Actually just tested a scope not that long ago, digital night vision. And, that's something that, again, anything that we can use to help us be more effective at night, that's what we're really going to focus and talk about here. But when you talk about thermal and people that have never been exposed to it before, when I take buddies out and they look through it for the first time, they're like, man, I got to have one. I got to have it. And I've got a lot of buddies that were big time deer hunters and everything else. They get a thermal scope. They forget about hunting during the day. They don't know what, to them, that's not funny. They want to hunt at night.
Absolutely. And the other thing is that, and I hear it all the time, I talk to guys and they say, look, I'm never going to be able to afford thermal, even though it's less expensive than it was 5 years ago or even 2 years ago. It's still way out of my budget. And I get it. I mean, I absolutely get it. And, if you can save up and go to digital night vision, it's absolutely better than that Q-beam spotlight. It's better than taping that mag light to the barrel of your rifle. And here's the thing, just like that new Sightmark Photon RT that you tested the other day, you can see 250 yards. I mean, this stuff, the technology is getting better and better all the time.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And I dropped a hog on a run, took a first shot. He took the shot, ran, and dropped him on the run with the Photon RT.
Absolutely.
And before, a few years ago, you would shoot once and,
that was
30
it.
seconds. So the technology in all these types of night vision scopes is getting much better.
Yeah, it has. Well, look, we can tell hog hunting stories all night, and that's part of what we're going to do on this podcast. But let's just go ahead and just tell everybody a little bit about what we're going to do in this podcast, what the point of it is, and it is going to be telling hog hunting stories. That's going to be part of it.
Lots of hog. I'm telling you, I walked in 30 minutes ago. I was like, I got to do a podcast with Jason, so I'm sitting here with mud on my jeans and just wipe the mud off my hands on my pants. So we're going to tell lots of stories like that.
Well, and the other thing is I think we need to talk about the name. We're kicking back and forth this idea, and Hans said, I like the late night vision show. And I said, what about the late night vision show? So we really, we are recording these late at night because it's easier to do. I've got a wife and a 3-year-old and an 8-year-old as well. So we've got small kids, so it's easy for us to do these late at night. And that's right. We may be interrupting these things, cutting them short to go shoot a hog. You never know.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you, you and I are when we talk to each other, usually it's between 10:30 and 1 o'clock in the morning. Sometimes when we get a chance to talk. But the late night vision show really kind of a spin off some of these comedy shows that come on TV at night. The Late Show or the Late Night Show. So really, what we want to do, this is a place to talk about the thermal gear, the night vision gear that's coming out right now, all the scopes and optics that are coming out. But I'm going to tell you, we're going to keep it very light. We're going to have fun. We're going to joke around. As you can tell, we're going to kind of give each other a hard time because, hey, I'm going to tell you, I'm an easy target. I'm an easy target. So, we're going to keep it light. We're going to have fun. There's going to be some comedy. If you know Jason and I at all, you know that we're jokesters. But also, we're going to have some very pointed conversations about the hunts that we have, about what we're doing, about the gear we're using. And, it's going to be with Jason being connected and co-hosting this show. He's got the inside information on a lot of this stuff that's coming out, what's coming out down the road, what's coming out now. And, with you being able to get these scopes, you're testing them. I'm testing stuff that's just now coming out on the market or maybe hadn't even hit that we're demoing stuff. So we're going to get
right.
a chance to share with everybody listening, some of this cool stuff that's coming out that's going to be available for everybody.
I agree. I mean, that's one of the goals is that, as I see what's coming down the pike, as I get wind of things, and once it is available for, public knowledge, I want to, announce it here. I want to say what I hear is coming, even the speculative things that, again, if it's not some sort of top secret, then, I want to say it. I want to say, here, here's what sounds like this is a possibility of what's coming. But yeah, as these new scopes come out, my goal, Hans knows this, whenever I hear about a new scope that I think is going to be worthy, it's going to be something that's, something that people are really going to want to use. It's going to be a good scope. I'm getting pre-ordered as fast as I can. My goal is, if I can, to get a demo before they come out. I want to get that thing so that not only, just get it in my hands, but get it in Hans' hands so that he can go out and test it as well, because this guy is hunting every single night.
And
he is. And
that, Jason, when you see me a scope, it's like, okay, this thing's going to get dropped in the mud. It's going to be thrown in the back of the truck. And you've always been great. You're like, man, put this ringer. Let's see what it can do. Let's see what it can't do. That's
right. No, I agree. And so we want to do that. We want to give you the first look at all the scopes that we can. And because both Hans and I are using all these scopes, we are able to give you a good idea of comparisons. And I'm going to tell you something, the same thing, just like Hans, I'm very blessed that my house overlooks my pasture that's down in a creek bottom. My house sits up high above it. It drops down about 15, 20 foot level flat in a creek bottom. So I literally walk to my door multiple times a night. I like to say 4 or 5 times a night. My wife says 25 or 30 times a night. And I'll look out there, walk out there and, use my thermal monocular, scan the whole pasture. And so we're using stuff every night. Just like, Hans said, if I'm at my house, which is about 360 days of the year, I am using night vision. I mean, rain or shine, I'm out there using it. So really what that does is it gives us the perspective of hopefully being able to give you opinions and real world use from somebody who's used something for more than 5 minutes. And I always say that there's not a night vision or thermal scope that doesn't look good during the daylight or at a trade show or whatever. But it's really, I never want to give people my opinion of something. Oh, I saw it at SHOT Show. Well, sure, we're in a giant convention center. It's going to look good, but I want to know what it looks like in the pitch black, looking 450 yards across the pasture. That's what matters to me, and I think matters to most people.
Right, and when we're doing these review videos and putting them on YouTube and tying them to different hunting forums and stuff, it's about showing some of these coyotes and hogs at different distances away, so they can kind of get a gauge of what they look like, and like I said, what these scopes can do. And when we do a review, it's an honest assessment. It is, this is what is good about it, this is what's not, this is who it's going to be good for, and this is somebody that's challenged with it. So really that's it's about just putting a scope in front of the right person under the right conditions, and that's really what I hope to do with these review videos.
I agree, and I know that, and I've heard this before, and I get it. As the dealer myself, people will say, "Well, how can I trust you?" Well, let me tell you something. If I have a fault, I'm honest to a fault, and if I don't like something, I'm going to tell you. And there's some stuff that I don't like so much that I won't even do a review on it and tell you how bad it is. And if you call me and say, "Hey, I'm looking for this," I'm like, "You do not want this, and here's why."
Jason, somebody will call you up ready to buy a scope, and you and be like, "Well, I talked somebody out of a scope."
I'm a terrible salesman. I'm the worst salesman in the world. But you know what? I don't want to sell somebody something it's that they don't need, or it's not a good scope. It's just, that's not the way I am. But changing gears here, Hans, I want people to know this isn't just going to be about scope reviews. We want to do a couple of those a month if we can, if there's new stuff out, what have you. But I also want to talk about, and not just our hunts, that's important too, but I want to talk about topical conversations, questions that you get asked on the forums or on YouTube or social media, questions I get asked on the phone. And it's, hey, what about, which caliber is best? Well, there's a topic I don't want to wade into, but we will. We're gonna get into
you
this
open
stuff.
Pandora's box with that.
Exactly. I mean, and I also know that, night vision thermal imaging is, night hunting in general is exploding all over the country right now, and other parts of the world. And there's a lot of guys and I talk to them every day, and they go, man, I've watched videos, I've read, I'm so confused. What is the difference in digital night vision and thermal? And we're going to talk about some of that. We'll give basic primers on that. And so if you've never even held one of these scopes, we want to throw some stuff out from time to time that will just be a basic overview and explain that for you. And again, we can talk about all kinds of things. I mean, we can talk about whatever, suppressors or no suppressors, and, again, calibers, AR-15, bolt guns. We can talk about it all.
Yeah, you're right, Jason. We'll get into all that kind of stuff, and we'll do this on a regular basis. But what do you think about getting into a scope review?
Sure. I say let's go ahead and do it.
All right. Well, let's do it, man. How about this? On the other side of the break, we'll start talking about the brand new top-of-the-line scope from FLIR, the PTS736.
All right. That sounds good. Hey, folks, stick with us. We'll be right back.
Hey, y'all. Welcome back to the Late Night Vision Show. During the break here, Jason looked out his back door and saw about 12 hogs down in the bottoms down there. Now, he's a lot better man than I am, because he's back here joining us again for this this next segment.
It's halfway against my will. I did not want to be back here, and it was a big hog down there, and I really wanted to shoot him. And there was also some baby piglets, and Hans knows if there's one thing I like, it is baby piglets, because you shoot one of them in the head, cook the thing whole, you got some good eating. And so I am making sacrifices. Yeah, I'm through gritted teeth now for the first episode of the Late Night Vision Show. But we can't. I'm just going to tell y'all now, I'm not making a habit of passing up hogs for the show.
Well, I told him to go shoot him, but I'm glad you're back. But we're going to get right back into this, and this is something that you can expect to hear from here on out. We're going to do this from time to time, but we're going to do our first scope review, and this is on FLIR's brand new Thermosight Pro PTS736. So why don't you just go ahead and run down, Jason, briefly some of the features and specifications on this scope.
Absolutely. Well, one thing I want to go ahead and mention is that the Thermosight Pro line was actually announced by FLIR late last summer, early fall, and there's going to be 3 scopes in that series. The first one was released. It's called the PTS233. It was released at the end of the last year, and it's been very, very hard to get, but it has been, the availability has been a little bit better recently. And the 233 is the entry-level model. It has a fixed focus, so you can't focus the objective lens, and it's got a small 19-millimeter objective. So it's a great entry-level scope, but it doesn't quite compare to the ones we're fixing to start talking about here. But again, $2,200, super popular scope. The next one in the line is the PTS536, and it is not available yet. We're hoping that it's going to be out maybe in the next 30 to 60 days. Don't have a good date for sure, but we're hoping it's soon. It's going to be a 4-power base optical magnification, and it is going to have a 50-millimeter focusable objective. It's going to retail for $37.95. And so the third and currently the last one in the Thermosight line, we know there'll be more in the future, but the third is the PTS736. And all these scopes have been built on FLIR's new thermal core, which is the Boson thermal core. It's a 12-micron thermal core, and if you don't know what that means, just know that the microns, the smaller the number, the clearer the image is going to be for you when you're looking through it. And so 12 is actually the lowest micron level on any scope on the consumer market right now. So, I mean, that's just, it's awesome to get that. And the PTS 736 has a 320 by 256 core resolution. It is a 60 hertz refresh rate. It does have internal video recording, and that's a big deal now. Seems like everybody wants internal video recording, and it is in there. If for some reason you don't want it, if you're one of those guys that said, man, I just don't have any interest in it, don't be scared away, because you don't have to use it. I mean, it's there. It's not in your way. It doesn't require any SD cards, anything like that. So it does have that. One thing I should note is that none of the Thermosight Pros have microphones in the scope. So there is no audio, just video. But the big thing about the 736, and this is what I haven't mentioned, it has a 75 millimeter objective lens, and it has a base optical magnification of 6 power. Yes, 6 power. That is crazy high magnification.
It's insane.
It's insane. And for thermal, there's nothing else out there like it on the consumer market. It's very, very common for thermal scopes to be low magnification, 1.5, 2.5. 3 and 4 is high magnification, but
very
6, high, 6 is just unheard of before the 736 in the thermal scope. So anyway, with that said, it's a great scope. A lot of cool stuff about it, but Hans has had a lot of time behind the eyepiece on this. And so I'm going to kick it back to him, let him tell us about some of his hunts with it, and then I'll chime in with some of my experiences in a little bit.
Right. So, I had this scope for over 3 weeks, hunting with it every night. Put out 3 videos on YouTube about it. One was a full review, and I had 2 separate videos that were hunts. We actually had James from the Guns and Chicken Strips YouTube channel come out and hunt, and I used that while he was using his Pulsar Trail XP50. And I'm going to tell you, like I said in my full review video, I want to love this scope. Pulling it out of the box. I've used FLIR many times for a long time in the past. Very happy with their products, the quality of their products that come out. And when I was excited, probably more excited than anybody when this scope came in, I was finally able to get it and slap it on my rifle. Because when you pull it out of the box, you can tell that big 75 millimeter objective lens on that thing is just awesome. I mean, it looks great. I mean, and that when you look through it, it's going to have a great picture image. But I wanted to love this scope, and I'm going to tell you my experiences with it, all the hunts that I took it on, shot many hogs with it, and really the first thing I'll say is, wow, that picture image is crazy good. I mean, it is. Now just to explain a little bit, a lot of the hunting I do here in East Texas is very close. It's probably closer than what you'll find in other parts of Texas and other parts of the country. The majority of my shots are taken. Probably the closest shot I've ever taken was at 10 yards, and probably one of the furthest shot I've ever taken is a little over 100 yards, and it's really because of the conditions that we hunt in. There's so many trees out here. There's we don't have that many just big flat open pieces of land. It's hilly out here. There's trees, so you just don't get long range shots. I'm chasing through the woods after these hogs and shooting around trees and everything else. But when I put that scope, sighted it in easy. I mean, FLIR has always been easy to sight in for me. I'm just used to it. Took it out for the first time, and the first night that I had it, I was able to draw down on about 10 hogs at 45 yards away. And I'm going to tell you, when you lift up that scope with a base 6 power magnification on a group of hogs 45 yards away, I'm going to tell you, well, and one of those hogs was about 296 pounds. And I swear he took up the whole screen on that scope at 45 yards. Yeah. So
you can count fleas on their back.
Count fleas. You can tell which way the hair was laying. I could tell, which side of the body he'd been laying in the mud on. I mean, that's how powerful that magnification is. The first thing I thought when I drew down on those hogs at 45 yards is, man, this has got a crazy good thermal image. The image of it, the image quality is great. It's the best scope the picture image that I've looked at that's been in that 320 range. So it's
well, and your videos, I mean, that you put out on YouTube show that. I mean, they absolutely show that amazing clarity on those hogs. I think maybe a deer
Right.
and whatever. So definitely.
Deer, yeah, got some hogs. You know, I shot hogs at 45 yards, shot hogs at 70 yards, 80 yards. You know, the hogs that I shot at, the hog that I shot at 80 yards, I mean, again, it took up the majority of the screen. So, but yeah, definitely want to let that be known that the picture quality on this thing is amazing, and you'll be very happy with the picture image. But I'm going to tell you, just to get into the gist of it, for me, this is a great scope for somebody out there, but for me, it's not something that I can practically use. And I say that because of the fact of the base magnification. Now, if you're hunting coyotes or hogs out in, West Texas or another part of the country where you're, hunting hundreds.
The Midwest,
Midwest, yeah, where you're hunting wide open spaces and you need a detection range from a long ways away. This is going to be a great scope. But for me, the type of hunting that I do, I found it a little bit difficult when I raised up that scope to really get my point of bearing, because I raised it up and it took me a second or two to figure out what I was actually looking at, because it was so, that magnification was zoomed in so much.
The field of view is narrow for when you're talking about 40, 50 yards. It is.
So if you're trying to if you got hogs at 50 yards and you've got 10 or 15 hogs and a sounder in front of you, you really, when you're, and this, if you hunt hogs a lot, you're not really thinking about the first shot. You're thinking about the second shot.
That's right.
Because the first shot's almost a gimme. That pretty much you're going to drop the first hog right away, but you're trying to kind of guess in your mind where those hogs are going to run to. So you're trying to lay out your best angle of shot and all that. So that second shot is difficult because of the fact of you kind of have to scramble to get that hog in your field of view in that scope, because it is zoomed in so far. So that's really what I found the most difficult about it, other than the fact that it has a great picture image, is just that magnification being so high. I never even used the 2-power or forward power zoom on it. It was way too much.
Well, the one thing I do want to say, I want to butt in here and say, Hans talks about the first shot's a gimme, you drop the hog. That's Hans. Now, for me and the everybody else listening, we
right, yeah. Well, there's some people that say, for Hans it ain't a gimme. So
they've watched your videos. You forgot they've seen your videos.
Yeah. So
but he is right, and I want to make that point is that it is that first shot. Everything's calm. Nothing's moving. You get all the time normally that you need. You're there, but the minute you pull the trigger, all heck's going to break loose, and those hogs are going to be like ants. And that's when you want some field of view to be able to get on the next hog. So I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I want to throw that out.
Yeah, that's exactly right, because that, like you said, that first shot, everything's calm there. You kind of lay it out the shot, and you know which hog you're going to shoot at first. But like you said, when you shoot that first shot, it's ants, and you're trying to scramble to find the next target. So that's really the biggest drawback for me for this brand new scope. And like I said, I wanted to love it right out of the box, and there are going to be a lot of people out there that do love it. I know you've had a lot of calls and interest in it, this scope, and there's a lot of people out there that say, you know what? I like the magnification. I like the higher magnification scopes because I'm shooting coyotes out in the Midwest, and I'm shooting them from 150 to 200 yards away. And I'm going to tell you, if that's your type of hunting, you're going to love it. But like I said, for me down here in East Texas, it's a little bit too much. The other thing that Jason mentioned is the audio. There not being any audio with the recordings. For somebody like me that creates content for YouTube, putting together the videos, it does add an extra step of work for me when I'm putting the videos together. But, there's a lot of people out there that love to record hunts, and not just sharing it on social media, but just to have it for themselves to show their buddies, And so the audio thing can be overcome just by, if you're wanting to create it on YouTube, just splicing audio, recording it on your cell phone, and then splicing the two together. It's not very difficult, but it is an extra step of work. So just know that just because there's no microphone on the scope doesn't mean that you can't add audio to a video. You can
Sure.
by other means. It's just a little bit of extra work to get in, to get that on there.
Yeah, and for the average guy that's, I mean, just going to be sharing this with his buddies, it's not the end of the world. It's going to be a 30-second clip of of him shooting a hog and whatever. Not a big deal. It is a bigger deal when it comes to YouTube, because if
Right.
you're putting out multiple stuff, people like to hear the shot. They like to,
Right.
more entertainment value there. So I wouldn't let it be a deal killer on any of these Thermosight Pros, but it is something to consider if you do YouTube.
Yeah, and another thing I want to talk about and mention are the many different color palette choices that you have. Now, you and I have talked about this at great length.
Mm-hmm.
There's really only a couple that you and I use. I identify hogs and coyotes in white hot because it's easier for me to see them through trees, through the woods with the white hot setting. And when I see my target, I immediately switch over to black hot. And I'll tell you the reason why, and really the only reason why I shoot in black hot is because it looks better on video to me. When I'm posting videos up on YouTube, the feedback that I get is, hey, we really like the way the black hot looks on video. So that's really why I shoot video. The black hot on video, but really everything else is in white hot. But there's many different color palette choices. Really, the most popular one that I hear a lot about is that outdoor alert, where it's where they have the kind of the orange and red on the hot, on the animals. So that it really looks cool.
Yeah, I'm going to interrupt here because this is a time for brutal honesty. Because we said we were going to be honest on the show, and I'm going to be honest. And Hans and I do talk about this. And look, the color palettes sell these scopes. Right. People love to see them. It looks cool. I'm not going to lie. But when you really get behind the eyepiece of this and you do a lot of hunting, I think you're going to find that they're really not overly helpful. I mean, black hot, white hot, that's standard on every thermal scope. Right. But when you get outside of that and you get into these rainbow and iron bow and sepia and all these different colors, I'm not saying it's a bad thing. And if you like it and it looks good to your eyes, use it. Right. But I really don't find it helpful. And I find it actually distracting at times because there's so much going on, even with the outdoor alert, which is the most popular one. And I admit it does look good in videos, but I tried to use it. One night I was actually going to shoot a coon with that 736 that was hanging off one of my corn feeders, spinning that spinner. And I said, oh, this is going to be great. I'll put an outdoor alert. I couldn't do it. I couldn't force myself. It was just too busy. So again, that's to each his own. But I want to say, don't buy this scope just because of those, because I don't want you to be disappointed. They work and they're there, but they're not like all of that.
Yeah, and I'm gonna tell you, for me, there's some of those color palettes that are just unusable. Yeah, and I'm gonna say that because when you're picking a color palette or white hot or black hot, what I'm looking for is what color option does my reticle stand out the best on? Yeah. And for the rainbow and iron bow, and like Jason said, it's the contrast on that reticle versus the thermal image is just not enough for me to feel confident taking shots. But they're pretty to look at. They get a lot of attention. People really like them. But I think what they find is when they get it out in the field, they're sticking with the basics, and that's a great thing. And for those that like to have the other different color options, it's there if you need it. But like you said, I wouldn't buy it just because of some of the color options that we have. Absolutely. But I took it out. I used it a lot, killed a lot of hogs. And Jason, I know you got a chance to use it as well.
Yeah, I did. I mean, I got a good bit of time behind it. I did kill multiple hogs with it. I was actually able to. I got some video. I haven't put it up yet, but I got video of coyotes at long distances, up to 400 yards. I got hogs at long distances, 350 yards. So it was really a great week. I got a fox at about 225 yards. I had a lot going on. There was a lot happening. It was really a great few weeks to be using it. Just a lot happening on my place. And I'm going to try to not take too long here because I know we want to wrap this up. But again, I want to just go ahead and mimic much of what Hans said here. I think it's a great scope. I think there's a lot of really good things about it. Image clarity is amazing, and I will say that anything compared to any of the 384 by 288 pulsars, any of the other 320s, I've never seen anything in the 300 resolution, in those 300 pixels anywhere, that matches the clarity of this 736. Now, I'm not going to tell you that it's the same as 640, but I am going to tell you that it will make you look twice. And the very first night that, I got the shipment of these in, I couldn't wait till dark, grabbed one, went out, was looking around, and I called Hans and I said, dude, this is unbelievable.
Yep.
And I told him, and I mean, I'll just be honest. I said, Pulsar and some of these other manufacturers, even Trijicon, I mean, it's, FLIR is knocking on that door.
Yep.
And I can't wait to see the 640 in the same boson core. And so everybody's going to pay attention to this, and they're going to have to react to this, because I really think that this 736 image quality is setting a new standard for, again, the 320, 384 in that range. So,
yep.
I'm just going to try to hit on a couple high points real quick, things that I noticed or that Hans mentioned that I thought of. He mentioned the reticle. That's one thing I really like about FLIR, is rather than just having a black or white, crosshairs, you've got multiple colors, and my favorite is the aqua blue. And I love it. And so some people may hate it. I can hear Hans probably doesn't like it. But what I like about it is that and I use a small reticle. I don't like a crosshairs that take up the whole screen. Some people do that. Those are in there. I like them small, but I like to be able to see them. And so with that aqua blue, I choose a thin crosshair, and it's just enough for me to feel like I can get that precision shot, but not be annoying or taking away from what I'm seeing on the display. So that's one cool thing that FLIR has, over some of the competition. So I really like that. And I think that I'm in a similar situation. I hunt a little bit longer distances than Hans does. I mean, I can see, right out my back door across my pasture, I can see 450 yards in one direction. So I do have some longer range stuff, but I still take my shots extremely close. I mean, my average shot is going to be 40 yards, with a long shot for me generally being 80. Now, when the hogs are running off after the first shot and they're scattering, yes, I'll definitely take shots at longer distances. 120 to 150 yards is a max probably for me. And even coyote hunting around here, I'm going to try to get those dogs in as close as I can. And so generally I wouldn't be taking shots over, 100, 125 yards. Now, if I was taking shots all the time at 100 or more, then I think this would be a great option. But for these close range shots for me here in East Texas, and for a lot of people in the South, a lot of us that are down here hog hunting, and I know not all the South is wooded, but I know there's some farm country, but a lot of guys down here in the deep South, I think it's going to be too much magnification. But if you are in farm country or moving up through the Midwest in that corn belt, I think coyote hunting, it is going to be great. But it is too much if you plan on shooting a lot of stuff at 30, 40, and 50 yards. Right. Now, one more thing I will say, I know we're harping on this magnification, but that's the selling point of the scope, and that can also be the negative for some of us. But I think coyote hunting, if you're watching a coyote and that coyote's coming in from 300 yards and you're just watching him, it's not that big of a deal on the magnification. It's not going to bother you like us that are walking up and there's 12 hogs out there in a group and you're trying to get on them, pick the biggest one, figure out where they're going to run. We have a lot more going on after that first shot. and or even before
right.
than a coyote hunter. If you can watch that dog come running in, you can stay on him, and I just don't think it's quite as big of an issue.
Yeah, and I would definitely agree with that. And just with the magnification, like you said, we talked about it a lot, but that was one of the big selling points for this when FLIR released this. And like you said, I think in upcoming models that they put out down the road, with a couple of minor modifications, magnification being one of them, and the audio, and if they put that in a 640 core, man, the other manufacturers are going to really going to have to keep up to keep up with some of the things that FLIR's doing. So
I agree. And one thing I will say in a little bit of closing is that these 736s that we've sold, the customers that I've talked to, I made sure they knew what they were getting into. A lot of them had come from high magnification during the daytime. Even some of them had used high magnification scopes at night in some of the Gen 3 stuff. And I've talked to them, and they love it. They wouldn't want any less. They knew what they were getting. They love it. So our experience is just going to be different than a lot of other people's, and that's going to sway our opinion some. But overall, I killed hogs with it, and I was able to take those follow-up shots. I dropped a first hog at 50 yards in a group, dropped the next one at about 60, 65 yards, no problem, with them all running around. So it's definitely doable. But I think big thing is image quality it's definitely there, and I can't wait to see the 536.
The 536. There's a lot of anticipation for the 536, and I know as soon as they come in, you and I are going to be the first ones to break it out of the box, and I know we're going to both be putting videos up on YouTube and all the socials. And speaking of that, we appreciate y'all joining us on the show. This is episode 1. A lot of the things that you can expect are scope reviews. We're going to be talking, and in our introduction, we talked about a lot of the content that's going to be coming up. Now, to find us on all the social medias, you can find me on YouTube at HansETX on YouTube, and on Instagram, same thing. It's HansETX, and that's HansETX. Please reach out to me if you have any questions at all. You can, message me through Instagram and YouTube. And Jason, with your contact stuff.
Yeah, you can find me. Obviously the website is outdoorlegacygear.com. Again, outdoorlegacygear.com. But feel free to call if you have questions about this scope, any other night vision or thermal imaging. Call me. That number is 877-350-1818. And you can call me pretty much 5 days a week, anytime during the day. This is my full-time job. All I do is sell night vision and thermal. It's all I've done for several years. So this is, it's my life. It's my passion. And so you can catch me anytime there. If you do want to find me on, I'm on Facebook, Outdoor Legacy Gear. Same thing. YouTube is at Outdoor Legacy Gear. And once again, same thing on Instagram. So all the social medias, that's where we're at. Yeah. But we will be glad to, I know Hans and I both answer any questions, anything you've got, we're glad to do it. Just feel free to call me anytime. Yep.
And we're going to, hopefully what you can tell is we're going to give you an honest assessment of the scope. And what Jason's good at when you call is really finding out your conditions and helping you get into a scope, whether it be a FLIR, a Pulsar, a Sightmark, whatever it is. He's going to put you in the one that's best for your conditions. And it might not be the one that you called for, and it might be one that's less expensive.
But that's my signature trait.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
So we're gonna give you what we honestly think about the scopes and the conditions that we hunt in, and from that you can take that information and make an educated decision on what type of scope you want to get moving forward. But we appreciate you tuning in, Jason. I appreciate you being on the call, having me on the call. We're going to be doing this again a lot and having some guests. Like I said, this is a lighthearted show. We're going to be serious about the equipment that we talk about, but we're going to joke around all together at the same time. So
that's right. Well, and I'm just going to tell you right now, we've got to wrap this up because I've got to go see if those hogs are still out there. I'm just antsy in my chair right now. I have to know.
Well, we'll let y'all go, Jason. I appreciate it, and y'all keep making them bacon pancakes, and we'll check y'all next week.
All right, thanks for listening.